John Sewell with the Engearment.com podcast. I'm really excited about today because I have on two guests who have a podcast that's actually my new favorite podcast, the Breakthrough Secrets Podcast. Got Mike Kurkowski up there and Chris Abbott. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, man. We're excited to be here.
Oh, this is going to be a lot of fun. So, I got to ask, how and why did you start the Breakthrough Secrets Podcast?
You want me to take?
I'm going to you, Chris. Yeah, you do first serve. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's kind of funny. It started in COVID. It was summer of 2020, and I mean, I think like most people, just feeling like a lack of connection that whole year. Having a gym, we were impacted as every other gym owner was, and so Mike and I, we've just always been able to carry on conversation with each other, and so we had the idea of like, hey, let's start a podcast, but we did it with the wrong intentions. We did it purely expecting and hoping that it would make us money, because we were suffering at the gym and we had lost money due to COVID, and we pivoted online, but just things weren't going that well at the time, and so we started the podcast. In fact, I think our first episode, it's horrible. If you go back and listen to our first episode, I literally took my phone and recorded a voice memo. I put it on a box jump, like a box in between the two of us in an echoey, empty gym.
Yep.
And that was our first podcast episode. And it was so we did that. I think we probably only put out like 12 or so episodes. It wasn't maybe once a week or two or three a week, maybe, Mike. We didn't have any guests, and when it didn't make us any money, we were like, yeah, no, we don't have the time for this. We need to put our focus on things that are going to make us money. And then we kind of just stopped. I think we only did it for a couple months, and we stopped. And then it was right around the New Year's time, sometime in January, where we actually had one of our fans. We didn't even know we had fans, because we didn't have very many downloads. He had emailed us, he emailed me and was like, hey, are you guys going to put new episodes on your podcast? And I had to ask him, like, do you mean the stories? Because it was originally called Stories Beyond the Bell. Or what was it, Mike? Stories Beyond the Bell. Beyond, right? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I loved it. And we were like, huh. All right, interesting. It's kind of flattering. We have a fan, one fan. I think it was pretty timely, because at that point in January, Mike and I, we had pivoted and done some really successful things with our online business. Made a lot of money but weren't really satisfied, weren't really fulfilled. We were looking to get back into something that really satisfied us and our desire to not only learn more, but share more knowledge with people. And, as Mike said before we kind of hit recording here, I challenged him. I'm like, all right, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it differently. We're going to do it every day for a year, and then we'll make the decision as to whether or not it was a good decision to do this. And we're just going to have fun with it. We're not going to do it with the expectation that it's going to make us money or it's going to save our business or whatever. And, and he was like, all right, let's do this. And that was back at the end of January. And here we are now, 115 or so episodes later.
Yeah. And I think that, to add a little bit of a spin on that too, like we used to, as a team we had our other coaches, and we had like a walkie-talkie app that we would connect with all the time. And we'd be throwing 6-minute, 7-minute messages back and forth, and it started to, be just, a lot. Sometimes it was rambling, but it was always stories. It was always messages. I mean, been doing the business of strength for a long time. So you just have stories that just pop back in from your old brain into the frontal cortex. And then, as Chris said, like we started to do it, just talking about things that we enjoyed: strength, nutrition, stoicism. And it was a blast. But at the time in the summer, it was, we, like everybody, we were struggling. We needed to figure out ways that we could stay afloat and keep the business going. So kind of put on the back burner. And then, as Chris said, when we got back into the wintertime, we were doing a lot on online business. We changed courses a bunch of different times, as probably many people listening, did in this last year, and realized that we were kind of losing a little bit of the sense of why we got into this business in the first place. We love strength. We love connecting with people and sharing stories, and just kind of got back into it. And then just started reaching out to some people that we knew. We've been in the Strong First community for a long time, met a lot of different people, and just asked if they wanted to come in, just do some interviews, and realized it just started flowing. And then they had more people that they referred us to. Hey, you should get this person on. Hey, you should get this person on. And everybody kept saying yes. So we're like, all right, well, let's keep doing it. As Chris said, he's, challenged you over. He's like, all right, we're going to do this every day for a year. And I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Start from an honest place. Like you, my business is closed beginning of COVID, and my podcast here has been a great way to connect with people, especially mentors, people I would never think would give me a time of day other than at a Strong First event or cordially online. And you're right, it's a great way to build community, authenticity, and pick those big brains and share their stories. And I'm so happy that you guys have been doing. I didn't realize it's 7 days a week. That is impressive. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's that connection that you said. I think a lot of people, whether you're brand new in the business or like you said, like titans and giants in the business, everybody was almost craving that connection. I think at that time too, we've been shut down, isolated for a long time. And, some people like, Brett, who's been my coach for a long time, we could talk for hours on everything. We've done it in the studio. Same with Tim, and then other people we've met through the community, and then reached out to just kind of different people in different arenas. And, I think what I realized, and I think Chris can attest to this too, is the energy I was feeling throughout the rest of the day from just having these conversations was like unbelievable, like just connecting and sharing different stories, hearing about different people's background, because, sometimes you see these people who are, super successful, or you just kind of have a view of what they are on social media on the surface. You don't realize a lot of them came from humble backgrounds or different stories, and you got to really see how people came up, people in the kettlebell world who are giants, about their first time calling it a kettleball, and stuff. They get like, oh, they did that too, so it's so interesting to hear, because everybody's got a story, and it's been just really exciting to connect with a lot of people, and, making good friends and just making good connections.
Oh, for sure. It shows up in your recordings. I love the riffing you guys have at the very beginning, and then the guest comes on and they're super comfortable, like Dan John, Greg Cook. Like, I can't believe the names. They're books of authors I listen to and pay money for, and you're having great conversations with them, just riffing, and you can hear their joy and connection in your podcast. It's super.
Yeah, no, and I think that's one thing we always we'll get questions a lot of times, like, what to expect, or what kind of questions would you like to cover? And we always say, like, we like to think that the three of us, our guest and Mike and I, are at a certification, and we're at the restaurant after. All of us who have gone to Strong First events or any certification, right? There's always that time where after the certification, go out to dinner, you shoot the shit, and really that's kind of what we're looking to do with our guests, is keep it super conversational. Things feel uncomfortable if we feel like we have to stick to a script of questions for Mike and I, at least. And yeah, I mean, as Mike said, it's easily the most energizing part of our day. As you said, Sean, I mean, to have one-on-one conversations with many of our guests, you would have to, if you weren't doing a podcast and you just wanted a one-on-one hour of this guy's time, or woman, whoever it is, you would have to pay some pretty serious money. And so Mike and I feel pretty grateful for that. And I think it's been cool too, to know and hear from our audience now that, like, A, we've grown an audience. B, we're providing a lot of value, which is really fulfilling on our end, to know that these episodes are sharing knowledge and giving people some insights into things that they can apply to their own life that really make an impact, which is just awesome to know that, hey, we're the source of kind of this information for some people who really enjoy listening to our show.
Oh, 100% agree. And I love that you guys, I feel like you took the torch from Dr. Craig Marker, who is a fantastic guest. You guys have had him on twice now, I believe, and I've had him on twice. Just a wealth of information, such a kind person.
Oh, yeah.
He's the man. We can go off on it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do so. But the Strong First podcast was my favorite because we had all these great minds, very actionable items and relatable information. And you guys took that torch and did it like 10 times more. Is there like a magic hit list you have of people you love to interview?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a funny question. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, as Mike said, we started off just thinking, okay, well, who could we get on the show? Well, Brett Jones is Mike's coach and Tim Almond is mine. Let's start with those guys. Pretty big names in the industry. And then it kind of was like, it's kind of like the cool kids now. So then, who else can we reach out to and drop, Brett and Tim's name, who we've had on the show. And as that list grew and grew, I mean, now it's pretty simple for us to, anyone in the strength world, if we just drop some of the names on our list, Yeah, I mean, unless you really don't like any of those guys, you probably are going to want to be associated with them and maybe come on the show, right? But as far as like how we go about picking the guests, we always ask our guests a couple different things. Number one, we'd love to have you back. Would you be willing to come back on? And number two is, if you know anyone who you feel like would like the show, having just done the show with us, we'd love to connect with them. And sometimes I think conversation, the topics that like we just wrapped up with Abel James today, who the Fat Burning Man podcast, and obviously we talked a lot about intermittent fasting, things with him. That's fresh in our minds. Maybe we reach out to somebody more of the nutrition world today because of that or whatever. It really is it's very organic in the sense that, and some people like Menachem Brody, who's been a guest of ours a couple times on the show, has said, like, I can pick out how you're doing these, like, and can kind of see how, oh, this guest must have referred these people and whatever. And it is kind of like that. It's kind of just like a referral. We had Mike Salemi on yesterday, who was a referral from Steve Cotter. And, we just kind of roll that way, so to speak. I think the cool thing and why we named it Breakthrough Secrets, and Mike, you can talk a bit more about this, is we just wanted to have conversation. We wanted to be able to talk about anything. Yes, we're Strong First guys and we're kettlebell guys, but we didn't want to be the quote Strong First podcast, because there are a lot of other topics that interest us that if you kind of pigeonhole us into that world, maybe we technically wouldn't be able to have a conversation about,
Yeah, and I think to kind of go on Chris's point there, like one of the things, I've started becoming a fan of podcasts when I left my old job and I started working with Chris. And I went from living like a half a mile away from where I worked to traveling 30 minutes one way. So all of a sudden I had a lot of time and behind the windshield. And I started listening to podcasts. I would listen to, guys like Joe Rogan and stuff. And you could realize that there was an art of conversation that I really loved. And sometimes from working also with Brett for so long, like if, people know Brett Jones, he's such a wealth of knowledge. He's such an incredible guy. But some of the greatest things that I've found out with Brett was just having a conversation, because things just pop up in your mind that you learned before. So I think like it's always great to have, the huge moguls that you hear of, like Gray and, Dr. McGill and, Brett on, but also just some people that we've just had on from a referral have become some of the most fun conversations that we've had, coming forward. And it's learning, it's insight, but then it gives you an opportunity when you can talk to somebody about asking a question maybe you've thought about, and it's like a mind meld situation. So a lot of times we go into these with an idea of some things maybe that we want to talk about, like how do we get on the highway? But after that, it's like, all right, let's let this go wherever it wants to go. It's like you see if you look at like almost like a late night show where it's almost like a fake enthusiasm that you hear of stuff. It's like, we never wanted to do that. We just wanted to have just an authentic conversation with somebody and just let it really roll. And after we really kind of get a few minutes in with somebody that we just met, all of a sudden everybody's just kind of takes a deep breath and just kind of relaxes and just has a good time. And, if it's entertainment and provides some value to people, then, I feel like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. And it comes through. Honestly, I know me and Keem bringing this up, but it is very important. Even the Steve Cotter one, you had Steve Cotter and I believe Brett Jones in the same week. I was like, this is so cool, covering two different ways of looking at the kettlebell training. And also, I was appreciative of how open Steve was talking about like the connection and just emotions and stuff like that. And I think that's really what probably something you guys learned is when we pick the brains of people we admire so much, we realize there's a deeper human element to them. Mm. And they're open to talking about really heavy topics sometimes too, which is really helpful because we're all, as to quote Brett Jones, we're all going through our own battles, right? And so it's nice to be relatable to people and share that. And I love how you guys go through and like, I have like 6 questions and I almost never get past number 3 on our.
Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah.
Which I think is the most fun way to go about it.
Yeah. Well, I think too, the strength, the physical side of strength is a good gateway into a lot of other areas. It's like we can talk about sets and reps all day but there's also a million freaking programs out there that you can just go find. And all of them are going to work if you stick with them in some ways. And me and Chris have been doing, this style of training, and we've had a million conversations about that in our studio and on the phone and then recording. But then, the mental side of strength, the physical, the spiritual, the emotional, the sexual. I mean, there's all different sides of strength. And we've kind of just tapped into different arenas from that a lot of times with people. And that's kind of the cool thing, because all of a sudden you see somebody like Hector Gutierrez, who's a monster in physical strength, has so much deeper stuff that he's really going about, and such deeper connection of some things like emotional work and helping men become better men. And so, you know, there's so much value of, there's so much information out there from people, and you can read about it in a book, or you can have a conversation with somebody about experiences. And, you know, the latter of it, I think there's just the connection of it is just different. And it's been just the biggest impact. You know, me and Chris say all the time, it's like, this is our personal continuing education program that hopefully people are enjoying and listening to.
I know, right? Hopefully you get something from our benefit.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Well, here's a question for you. I've been curious about this for quite a while. What was your aha moment that brought you into health and fitness coaching in the first place?
That's it. Well, I think for me personally, I always had a dream of being like a professional athlete. And, you know, specifically, I always wanted to be a pro football player. Never played a day of organized football in my life, but I always wanted to, right? And so there was always just this kind of like deep-seated desire to be a professional athlete. And when I learned, you know, in high school, I was like, well, that's not going to happen. You know, it's like, well, what's the next best thing? I thought, okay, well, I'll work with pro athletes. You know, I'll go to school, get an athletic training degree, whatever. And again, not even knowing what the correct term is that I should look up, I looked up athletic training, went and did a job shadow with an athletic trainer. I'm like, this is not what I want to do. This is like taping ankles and whatnot, right? So, you know, anyway, long story short, I ended up, I got into the Ironman triathlon on a whim. You know, did that for a couple of years, and then found myself out in LA just because I was over New York. And I literally just, there was an ad for a Craigslist job as a personal trainer in Equinox. And I was like, yeah, let me go take a look at that. Had never really thought to become a personal trainer, just knew that I wanted to be involved in something, some shape or form with health and fitness and strength, because of my desire to be a pro athlete and never having that desire fulfilled. And so wanting the next best thing. And yeah, in a crazy roundabout way, I did end up being able to work with pro athletes years later as a personal trainer, was able to work with some pro athletes and have over the years and whatnot. But you know, for me personally, it all stemmed from a desire to be a professional athlete myself. I'm an athletic guy. I've always been kind of a stronger, faster guy, and just wanted to kind of like tap into that and put it to use, and ended up finding myself as so that job that I took, I didn't think it was going to turn into a career. Literally, I just needed a job. We had just moved out there, and my roommate and I were living in a hostel in Santa Monica that was like right next to the bus station, which we had both lied about our jobs because we didn't have jobs to even get that place. You know, yeah, then kind of worked my way up there, and I guess you could say the rest is history in terms of the personal training thing taking off. But for me personally, it was always at a desire to be an athlete, to be a pro athlete that I knew never was going to get fulfilled.
Wow. Yeah. When was that? Like 2009?
Yeah, I started my 2008 was when I started my training career. And then, you know, did a bunch of different certifications through Equinox, and you know, kind of like you said, Sean, reading all the books by Gray Cook, Stuart McGill, Mike Boyle, a lot of those guys, and then branched off on my own in 2011. And it wasn't until 2016 that I actually got, you know, I always joke that most times when we have guests on, I am the baby as you know, in relation to, you know, kettlebell training. You know, Mike's been with RKC since 2011. You know, I've been in, you know, StrongFirst since 2016. So it's crazy to think, you know, I've been in the strength and, you know, the fitness industry for 13 plus years. I've only been training with a kettlebell exclusively for like 5. It's not that long. Mm-hmm. So in the grand scheme of things, like I consider myself a baby in this world of kettlebells.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take away from Mike, so I'm going to come back to I started in 15 with Zara Horton. So I'm with you. I'm like a couple months ahead, and I feel like a baby too. And I didn't know about this world. I blindly emailed Eric Frohart, at the time the CEO of StrongFirst, to get a about bow hunting. Next thing you know, SFGs and working with Brett Jones and Karen Smith, and the world is huge and welcoming. So
yeah.
Yeah, my time was I guess to take it all the way back. I really started into training with FMS. So to take it all the way back, I was an athlete growing up, like everybody. Baseball was my main sport that I absolutely loved. At 14 years old, I had a slipped epiphysis, so my femur slipped out of the growth plate. So I had to go in. I thought I had a really bad groin pull for a while, and kind of took me out of basketball season. It wasn't going away, so my parents brought me into an ortho and took X-rays on it. Saw it right away. It's like, yeah, the bone's supposed to be in here, not out here. And so they had to go in, emergency surgery that day. And I was on crutches, 2 crutches for 8 months, on 1 crutch for another 4. So I was off my leg out of any sports or anything like that for a year plus. So it was kind of a weird time going through high school, because all of my friends were in sports and athletics, to all of a sudden now I was off my feet. All my friends were still doing that. So it was kind of like that in between time. So kind of went through high school, and then, kind of got back into exercise and training, wanted to go back into baseball, and really got in good shape around the time that I was 20, 21 years old. So when I moved back to New York from Florida, one of my good friends who I worked with at a restaurant was a personal trainer, and he did FMS. I'm like, what the hell is that? So he brought me into his gym that I ended up actually working at for the next 10 years. And he did an FMS screen on me, and realized that from that pin in my hip, every movement I had was asymmetrical. Like I was completely lopsided. But when you're 20, 21 years old, you don't feel pain. You can just do whatever you want. You can work out for 3 freaking hours and go out in the bar that night, have 4 hours sleep, smell a cup of coffee, and then go back and do it the next day. But I realized I started to do some corrective work and some more functional training, and I realized I felt amazing. So I wanted to really pursue training. So I got into working with Gray Cook, and then Brett Jones came to the gym that I was working at and did the first ever level 2 FMS workshop. And I was the fortunate guy that picked him up at the hotel to bring him to a dinner we were going on. And I just picked his brain about the RKC, because he was a master RKC at the time, and was telling me about the work with Pavel. And I kind of, saw this kettlebell as something that I thought was kind of cool, more for like the minimalist aspect. I always liked just the bang for your buck type work. So I signed up for the RKC in 2010, did that. And then kind of from there, I just, stayed with it for a while, but I was more into management and kind of club sales for a long time, until I met up with Chris a few years ago, and I left my other job and started working with Chris, and really got back into the roots of kettlebell training and strength training. And that's kind of, after that, it just kind of kept snowballing from there. We had a studio that was amazing for a while, and then transitioned and moved it into the podcast and into online coaching. And that's kind of, the whole circle of how it kind of came to be now.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you've been through quite a bit of learning from last, goodness gracious, 11 years, 12 years with Strong First.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny though. It's like I guess the aha moment, if there's, a quote unquote one that I had. I've told Chris knows this story, but there was a woman that I trained. I think I was probably like a year or 2 into personal training, and I was a moron, kid. It was like I just thought everything was about aesthetics. Everything was about, lift more weight, just look as good as you possibly can naked. And this woman came in. I worked at a place there was a lot of senior citizens. We had a silver sneakers program, which was like an insurance-based paid membership. So we had a lot of seniors that came in, and a lot of them got one-on-one personal training. And I worked with a woman, her name was Helen. She was over 90 years old at the time. And, every trainer, they go through their PAR-Q and ask the question, what's your goal and stuff. And she said, I want to open up the peanut butter jar. And I kind of thought she was half kidding. I almost kind of like smirked for a sec. And I realized after talking to her is that her grip strength was lost, and she couldn't open the peanut butter jar anymore. And what she liked to do in the morning is wake up, make a cup of tea, and have her English muffin and peanut butter and watch the news. That was a really joyful time for her, and she couldn't do it anymore. So that was actually her real goal. So she signed up. We started training for a few weeks, and I'll never forget this. I was at my desk that we had. It was almost like a cubicle that we had out on the gym, and I'm just my head down writing a program, and I just feel a jar kind of hit my desk, and I look up and it's Helen, and it's a peanut butter jar. And she says, watch this. And she took it and she opened the jar. Wow. After. And the look of excitement on her face was like she just won the TSC and a powerlifting meet in the same day. Like it was such an accomplishment. and that was like, I think the first time I really realized like, wow, like strength has a greater purpose and it means something different to everybody, whether you're an athlete or that. And that is, if I can really pinpoint down like a turning point, an aha moment that I had of when I really fell in love with working with people in health and fitness, I think that was really the first moment.
That's a beautiful story. Oh, that's super cool. I love the situations where like you work with somebody and they achieve a goal that's unique to them. And oh, that's beautiful. I just recently started working with a 91-year-old last week. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, I was like, whoa, this is going to be a nice challenge. And his goal is to volunteer twice a week in Rocky Mountain National Park and advise people on what trail to go take with their families. I was
That's
like,
awesome.
Support that 100%, sir.
Yeah. You learn so much from working with people of all walks of life like that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love these stories. Yeah, strength has a greater purpose. Absolutely. Not just aesthetics and pushing heavy numbers. It's quality of life and opening peanut butter jars.
Absolutely. Who doesn't love peanut butter, right?
Seriously. Who doesn't want a little peanut butter on their English muffin in the morning?
Okay, this is a fun segue. So I'm sure you guys have assisted and worked with educational events for Strong First and other places. Some of your favorite events in coaching?
Ooh, favorite events in coaching. Mike, do you have one?
Yeah, well, I guess as an attendee, CKFMS was unbelievable that I did. This was back in 2011. It was a 4-day just deep dive into training, kettlebell work. And at the time when I did it, it was like a Mount Rushmore of like strength coaches that were, it was Brett and Gray, but it was Dave Whitley, it was Jeff O'Connor, Mark Chang, Dustin Riptoe, like everybody, like it was the most unbelievable, Mark Snow, Nikki Snow were there help. I mean, it was an unbelievable group of people who were leading that event. And it was hysterical because if you've done RKC or done SFG and stuff like that, you go in and it's a lot of movement. It's a lot of work. CKFMS was all like mental and psychological. We moved a bit, like kind of doing different movements, but it was all a lot of assessment work. It's a lot of corrective based work. So after the third day, everybody's walking in like we just went through snatch test ordeals and everything, but it was all mental of going in. And that was an absolute blast that we had. But assisting, the first time I got to assist was in 2016 with Brett down in Florida. And it was so cool because it was a really small certification. It was an SFG2. And I got to work with, Brett was the lead guy, Tim Schumann, Michael Willey, Aaron Grogan, Craig Marker was there. That's when I met Craig for the first time. And it was so cool because one, it was June in Orlando. So it was in a zero air conditioning gym with these like huge airplane fans that were going on. So poor Brett was the guy coaching the whole time. I think he lost his voice halfway through the second day, but it was so fun to work with a small group of people that, and just kind of get into that deep dive and kind of see it on the back end of it, like going through as an attendee through SFG1, SFG2, CKFMS, SFB, all this stuff. And it's so fun to go in, but to see it as an assistant, it was such a great group of people too. Everybody came in super well prepared and really got to, and to assist Brett and to just actually see him in his element when you realize, okay, this is why he's the director of education of our program, because he just can talk every language and just relate it exactly to what you need. To anybody to work with. So it was just an absolute blessing to work with him.
Of course, that sounds like a really good event. And did he make up any words? Because he makes up a lot of words.
I think I have a running kind of competition with Brett of who can make more analogies with stuff. I think he's got me, I think, by a bunch, but his one-liners of stuff is just things, especially from movies and just different stuff, is absolutely hysterical. His favorite, probably his best line that I think is just the best, comes from a lot of his stuff that we've worked with recently with strength aerobics, whereas you can do the same thing every day as long as you don't do the same thing every day. And I think that's such a great analogy, especially for just strength training, because with strength aerobics, it's clean press, squat, snatch, you can change it a little bit each day and just make it a little bit different. That's why it's become my favorite way really to train as a you know, because I'm on a sinister journey right now personally, and it's like the day of like the scratch the itch, kind of everything that I'm missing else besides swings and get-ups, I get in from just a little bit of strength aerobics work. And to work with Brett on that, and he's always pulling out one-liners of stuff from the Avengers or Three Amigos, and it's you're always finding something from Brett.
I have like pages of notes from our last meeting of quotes and really helpful wisdom nuggets too. Like one of my favorites: "If you find yourself in hell, keep walking." I know, like
there makes sense. Yeah,
that's very Brett. Yeah,
yeah, seriously.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I mean, for me, it's interesting. I don't. I was trying to think about that, and from for me, like I did Plan Strong in 2016, I think. That was kind of cool because they had just had their Strong First leadership meeting like that same weekend or the few days before. So everybody from leadership, almost everyone, was at that Plan Strong event. And it was cool. A lot of good takeaways. I think the thing I remember most from that is the fact that like Pavel doesn't let you. I'm sure you've probably done Plan Strong before, Sean, right? Yep, there you go. Yeah. So he doesn't let you use a calculator, no cell phone, no Excel spreadsheets, nothing like that, right? You really you got a calculator and you got a pencil. And so I remember myself, Grant Anderson, and Paul Corso, I believe is his last name. He's down in Tennessee. We all had a room together and we were up till like 2:30 in the morning. You'd think we were going out drinking, but no, because we were doing all the formulas and like because for the homework assignment, we had to like create a Plan Strong program and present it, be prepared to present it the next day. And fortunately, like we felt really good about it. Fabio had asked, who wants to come up and present, and we were like, we do. Like we stayed up till 2:30 in the morning. We want to do this, and I forget exactly what it was. He pointed out, was like, you didn't have to do all this, and we were like, what the hell, like, But it was great. I think for me it even further kind of ingrained the system because we spent so much time going through the numbers and whatnot. So that was a pretty fun event, But like Mike said too, I've only assisted once. I assisted just before COVID up at Skill of Strength in 2019. In the fall, because we had a coach that I had just hired for the gym who had been a member for a couple of years. And, a number of the coaches we had there, that's kind of what we did is like, they were members. We could tell they loved it. And we're great people. Like, well, we can teach you all the kettlebell stuff. We can't teach you how to be a great person. And so she had gone up to get certified. Brett was leading that. And I got to assist at the level 1, which was really cool. To go back and really dive into the basics because and you get the nerves of people, you get to that energy, that nervous energy that is not there at level 2, and so to be there to see kind of the other stuff, which Mike and I talk a lot about on the podcast, not just the sets and reps, but the mindset, the mental toughness, the going through the self-doubt, all that kind of stuff. So that was cool. But I think for me personally, the 2:30 a.m. night on Plan Strong was probably takes the cake because I didn't go to too many certifications or events where I was up till 2:30 working on whatever homework assignment it was for the next day. Maybe I was up at 2 a.m. for other reasons.
Exactly. Plan Strong kicked my butt, brain-wise. Well, kicked my brain butt.
Yeah.
And that your story is very relatable. Matthew Flaherty, who's been on my show several times, he's a hoot. Similar story. He's up till early morning trying to go through the math as well. And it is tough. It really makes you think, especially when you can't use a spreadsheet with a calculator. Yeah, it's tough.
The first thing I did when I got home was make a spreadsheet. I'm like, okay, now that we've passed this, like I'm going to make a put this in Excel and not spend hours more than I need to on these calculations.
Well, I think that's one of the great things about Strong First and Pavel of how he runs this program and his systems is by getting you back to kind of bare bones of just like a calculator and a pencil. And it's funny, we just had just talking to Abel a couple hours ago on our podcast. He said a line that resonated so much because we were talking about nutrition and food. It's like the answer maybe not be in the future, like with like new technology and stuff like that. A lot of times it's going back into history of what we needed to do before. And I think Pavel, and especially a lot of the top people that we worked with, it's always seeing that foundational stuff. A lot of the things that you need to develop physical strength, mental strength, it's all been there before. We're not reinventing the wheel of mental strength. It's just finding the best thing specifically for you. And I think that's been so cool. The one thing I always try and almost naturally find when we have a bunch of different people on our podcast is what's the similarities that they have that's making them successful? You know, it's like everybody has a different background, a different path that they took, but it's like, what are the similarities that they have? And all of them have a huge respect and a huge focus on the foundation, you know, of what they're doing, you know, whether it's physical strength, whether it's mental practice.
That today, right? Going back to the woodshed, as he calls it.
It goes back, because he's a huge musician, and he talked about, like, instead of trying to create new pieces of music, going back and just doing the scales over and over again. And like we've talked about, we did this a while back where I think Brett actually came to our studio and we are just talking about the 2-hand swing and just going back and always going back to the 2-hand swing. And now every time I go back to doing 2-hand swing work, it helps me with every other fancy shit that I'm doing in workouts and training. So it's always going back to that root of what works best for you. And I think with foundational training, it's almost like a term that a lot of people like now. It's like, oh, we're always starting with the foundation, but it's like, no, that really means like, once you think you have a strong foundation, keep going back and looking, because if another crack just might pop up there, just put that back in, so you can always work on that.
Yeah. To your point, I think Sven talked about that, about going back and doing this 2-hand swing, working with, I think, Tim, is it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's doing some snatch work with Tim too.
Again, foundation. And he's Sven. He's a team leader. He's, strong as heck.
And like the most nicest guy you can ever talk to is Sven Rieger.
Gentle giant.
He's a stud. Yeah, a lot of fun to talk with him. And that's, I hope the listeners and viewers understand the community within Strong First. It's just, they're really good people. You meet people at certifications or seminars, like the Strong Endurance seminar we hosted out here, and you become good friends with these people. And you wind up going on hikes, camping trips, going to get food or drinks or coffee. It's a really amazing community.
Yeah, it's interesting though too, Sean, is because I always thought that too, and I think it is very strong with it. But I think what me and Chris have found too with the podcast is a lot of people who are not within this community have so much information, so much knowledge that they want to share. There's a community around everything. Like talking with, some of the guys like Keegan Smith and Graham Tuttle from the ATG system who work with Ben Patrick, the knees over toes guy, how deep of a connection and a program that they're working with now. And then talking with Chris Chamberlain from the WEC method and all the rotational and the coiling and core work that they're doing. And we had Mike
Salemi. I already ordered my bag, dude. I ordered it yesterday.
Yeah. So it's like, there's so much, and there's so much great stuff. And I absolutely love kettlebells. I love the community of it, but there's so many good things out there being put out by really good people with it. So I think it's one of the things that I've really learned since starting the podcast and doing it so much is how much valuable information there's out there to people. So I think just the general curiosity, and like I've used the line before, I think I got it from Jordan Peterson. It's like, you can either fall in love with what you know or fall in love with what you don't know. And it's like, there's vastly more information out there that you don't know. So I think it's better to find those things that you don't and have a general interest and understanding of those things rather than only focus on the things that you already do know.
Yeah. Well, and I think like what you said, Mike, too, about, or Sean rather, about the community, right? Like I know for me, a little bit ago, you asked about the aha moment, and I realized I never told you what that was. I don't really know that I ever had one, but there was a minute where I was about to get out of the strength industry entirely. I was fed up over it. And it wasn't until I got certified with Strong First that it pulled me back in. I'd accepted a real estate job and I was done. I never started with that job because I got certified beforehand, but like I was just over the fitness industry. And one of the things that pulled me in was that community, was that sense of just belonging. It's almost, we've said before a lot on our podcast, the rite of passage, whether it's for masculinity or anything really, but just having that be a rite of passage of something of earning. And you get that right away because if you're Strong First certified or RKC certified, you've had to do a snatch test. And that in itself, it can be a pretty good kind of deciphering wall, so to speak, of okay, yeah, like you maybe you went through some stuff, right? And even if you're super strong, I mean, you still got to have the technical prowess to be able to do that snatch test, right? And so, but I think, furthermore, like what Mike was talking, we always like to say, like, especially with the podcast, connection is our currency. Like it is everything that we do. Connection is our currency. And I think that's kind of what like Mike's saying is that same kind of community feel that I get and got back in 2016 from the Strong First community. I mean, anybody. We've talked to a lot of Strong First people on the podcast and, just over the years, guys, you and I were talking about, Sean, just through social media. I mean, it's super simple to start off conversation with anybody in the Strong First community because we already have one thing in common that has probably challenged us and has probably taught us a thing or two about ourselves, right? And so the cool thing is, as Mike said, a lot of the people that we're talking to, you get that same sense. And it's like, okay, this person is not in the Strong First community or RKC. They don't train with kettlebells, but yet you have that same bond because they're so passionate about whatever it is they're talking about with us, whether it's, we've talked about psilocybin and movement. We've talked about sex. We've talked about intermittent fasting, a lot of different topics. And you get to connect on a deeper, because I feel like connection is the currency.
Oh, I love that. Again, I'm glad you guys feel the connection too. I'll be like, this is a heavy topic for a moment here, but it does bring in community. I was going through my first SFG. I was taking care of my sister while she was going through stage 4 brain cancer. I didn't tell anybody at the certification, but I didn't go to the dinner on Saturday. I told Eric, hey, I'm not trying to miss the dinner on purpose. I'm just caretaker for my sister while she's going through this. And the word got out, and the amount of support from the community as she was passing was amazing. It really was like brothers and sisters from people I had just barely met, but gone through snatch testing and learning together. It's a great bond. So
yeah,
I recommend it's involved immediately if you're curious about Strong First.
It is incredible. It's the last time I got to assist was last October. I assisted with Karen in Philadelphia, and it was again, it was a small certification, but I wanted to go through it because I actually never went through SFG 1 because I did RKC 1 and I just kind of got grandfathered in when the program split. So I kind of wanted to see the difference again, and you forget how much of you're going through something together. You're forging a tribe, you're forging that bond, and you would just see people who, didn't know each other on Friday morning, and all of a sudden on Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon are all giving each other hugs. It's like they've known each other forever. And, as Chris said, there's a kinship, there's a bond, there's a connection. And I think, the people that I think everybody just inherently wants to help other people in some way and have a legacy of helping somebody else. And I think that's the thing that we've seen from so many people and why so many people are interested in jumping on and having a conversation for an hour. It's because they're like, okay, I might have something of value that I can share with somebody and maybe reciprocate back and just go back and forth. So that's why, I think this medium, this area of podcasting is such a fun way to absorb knowledge and information because everybody just feels that connection. You can feel like you're in the room with us having a conversation.
100%. And you guys do such a good job. I know I keep mentioning that, but you really do. And so I listened to your podcast, Martin, their podcast. And this morning I was listening to the one with Sven for the second time, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Right in the room with Sven. I know what he's saying. I can see that smile on his face. Yeah, it's like you are there. And I love that you guys are not just focused on the kettlebell, like you mentioned, knees past toes. That was new to me this year. And we just hosted a movement at level 1 and 2 in our gym. So again,
okay,
toolkit, a new way of approaching things. And it's really amazing how we can take these things we can learn and take parts to help affect our students and clients.
Yeah. Yeah. The knees over toe stuff, man, is super fascinating. I mean, this is the 6th week now following the program. And it's super minimalist, really. It takes about a half hour. But yeah, just that it's really surprising. I think my take on it personally is a lot of the work that we do as kettlebell enthusiasts and, Strong First RKC guys is we've got a lot of potential power. Like we have a lot of power, we have a lot of strength, but what are you going to do with it? What do you want to do with it? How do you express it? Do you have a hobby? Do you play a sport? Something, if that's the case, then yes, you do. But like that just freeing feeling, it feels like it's been pretty powerful. Definitely feel more resilient in my knees and ankles than I have ever, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I know, Mike, you're feeling pretty similar too.
There's a springy feeling to it. Like I said, it's another program, and we've seen a lot of different programs that we've talked about of things that I didn't know about, that much. Like Mike yesterday, Salemi, who's a Bulgarian bag pro coach, which is like, I've seen some stuff like it before, but I really didn't know about it. And the correlation and the marriage and the complement that it has with kettlebell training, especially in sport, was just eye-opening. and so inspiring. And, I saw it, for a while, kind of the same thing, as Chris said, like I never thought I was going to leave the fitness industry, but I definitely had that time when it was like, I felt like every day was just the exact same. It's like, what the hell's going on? And we would go to like these seminars or summits, and people would go to the exact same people. I love Gray Cook. I love his stuff so much, but like I've learned so much from Gray. Like, unless he's coming out with something completely new on that, like I'll definitely get to it, and I want to see what he's doing. But I want to know what else is out there. I want to know other people's opinions of work and stuff. And it's and a lot of times, just a lot of conversations you have with people, it's just about passion. It's just about connection. We had Adam Fight on the other day, and the whole talk was about just client-centered coaching, about just how to put your client number one, first centered. And he's been, in PN and, every work, and now he's doing a lot of stuff himself, and he worked with Chris privately for a long time. That's how we,
which connected. By the way, I was going to say, that's probably the favorite thing I've done, believe it or not, from a certification standpoint, was the PN level 2. It was a year only. It was so valuable, but like it felt like going back to school. Now, it's one of the reasons why I know, Mike, you and I have talked about it, and Sean, I'm sure you agree as well. Like, the Strong First curriculum you have to commit to it. You can't just show up and get your certification. You will fail if that's the case. So, I think the fact that, with Adam, exactly. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, Mike, but I think it was worth mentioning, because he is, that conversation was great.
That is episode 112. And there's a quote right here: if you can get these 3 things in a day, you'll be in great shape: sweat, smile, and sunshine.
That's right.
Exactly. And it's like, it's those little things that just like, I'll remember that now forever. Like, it was just a quick thing that's just in there. And so like we said, like, everybody's got that different story, that different path, those things that they learn. Everybody's got those different clients that inspired them and saw something different. And that's like, for Chris and I on the podcast, like, the more we just hear those stories, and if it's helping our lives so much, but also with, the guys that we work with in our programs and stuff, if we can bring more value to them on an everyday basis, then we know that we're staying sharp, we're sharpening our saw every day. And I think, anybody who's a coach, that's the thing that happens a lot of times, is you start to get busy with stuff, and the continuing education, the continuous sharpening the saw can be tough if you don't have those platforms to go to. So me and Chris just kind of made it part of our day. It's like, all right, well, we're going to keep these things sharp. Well, we'll just create a podcast and we'll just connect with people.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And I love that you guys are open to new tools. I just resonated with you. The Bulgarian backs, I went that certification as well with Ken Blackburn after I did the IKFF 1 and 2, and then amazing. So
cool.
Again, fun tools, right? And it's such a unique design, like based on carrying a goat, right? Wasn't it a goat there swinging around?
I don't even know.
It was designed by a guy who was Ivan Ivanov for wrestling in Bulgaria, which was really the key thing. But then
it looks like you could be carrying around a goat, though. I guess the legs.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because a lot of people, if they've never seen a kettlebell before, and you see like a swing and stuff like that, you have an idea of what it is. Then actually you start practicing it and you're training it, and you realize it's such a deeper level underneath. So talking with Mike the other day about it, I saw some of the videos. I'm like, okay, I can see like the mobility work. I can see where this could be effective athletically. But then actually him going into all the dynamic rotational work, and how using like a 20-pound, 22, 26-pound bag for a guy who has done kettlebell sport with double 40s in his hands, not putting him down for 5 minutes.
I still couldn't believe that.
Using a 26-pound bag, and it's smoking him. Like now you're actually understanding and figuring out why that is, and seeing the details of the programming. That's like the freaking like light bulbs that are popping out. That you realize that taking deep dives into these things, it's just, that's where the exciting stuff, that's where the secrets are of these arts. And it's fun to hear these conversations from people, from the hard work that they put in.
Absolutely. This has been a lot of wisdom what you're throwing out here. I'm stuck on where you even try and end this, because you give me an hour of your time, and there's so many different topics I want to go down with you guys. I definitely want to do a round 2 and 3 with you guys if possible.
Absolutely.
Like we're just scratching the surface, and like just a lot of knowledge to be shared here, and a lot of wisdom nuggets. Guys, I'm so impressed with what you're doing. I didn't realize it's 7 days a week, so 115 episodes in.
Yeah, I mean, we record we get guests on typically 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Saturdays and Sundays, we're kind of, we record some, we were recording some, basically like another podcast we called Mornings with Mike and Chris, and which those are like our recap episodes of the podcast itself. And those predominantly went to our coaching group that we work with. Schedule got kind of busy. We did that for a while. We're like, hey, we're really doing 2 podcasts every day, 5 days a week. Like that's kind of a lot. And, but we loved it. Honestly, that second podcast was, and we're going to come back to it. We kind of just have put that on hold. So right now, Saturdays are basically like our recap episode for all of the guests we've had on this week. And then we're kind of going back to now Sundays posting like some of the original episodes back in like episode 3 and 4.
Like some memories.
Yeah, some memories. Yeah. But the Mornings with Mike and Chris show, personally, and I know Mike, you probably relate to this too, helped. It's like it just takes the information and it ingrains it into our minds, Mike and I, a bit more, because we've had the night to sleep on it. It's fresh in our minds. We come in, we talk about our biggest takeaways, and we've actually gotten some good feedback too. The guys that we work with, they like it, so we'll be bringing it back to some capacity, even if it's just a few days a week. But yeah, we got five guests on every single week, and then we usually do a recap or throw some of our own in there as well.
Yeah, I kind of related it to, like, if you read a book that you really enjoy, like, you're going to retain only so much of it. But if you go back and, like, if you're underlining things, you can start to see like the cliff notes and putting them together to see the highlights of what you had. And, me and Chris just started to do that, because some of the conversations are, some are just a blast, some are so informative, and some just get really deep and emotional. Like, we had Bud Jeffries on, who was talking about his son, and I had to go for a walk and just clear my head afterwards, because it was first it was like so emotional about what he's doing, and you realize some people are out there doing things like this, of spreading a message, of just trying to help impact people and do it in these ways. It's overwhelming in some ways to be able to connect with these people, and how freely people are giving their time to speak to you on it, to get in. So I think the biggest lesson, I guess, out of that is just, after this year of everybody being so isolated, realizing how important connection is, whether it's in person, whether it's through Zoom, whatever it is, just finding some sort of connection to connect with other people, because everybody's got their stories, and the more you can hear about them, it's going to help you so much. The way I think about my day now is just so different in the past 6 months, just from the things that we've learned from people who have done things that you're aspiring to do. It's the biggest blessing that I could ask for.
Yeah.
And to your point, that Bud Jeffries gave me goosebumps. Like, and it's very relatable for me on more levels. We can talk about that next time. But I'm so glad that you're able to assimilate the best parts of some of your favorite people, and it improves your quality of life and your listeners and viewers' quality of life as well. It's very actionable stuff.
Yeah. No, it's been great, man. And our goal is to just keep doing more of the same, and not have it ever feel forced, because it doesn't yet, and we don't want it to get to that point.
As my Engearment, my media company, I would have meetings at outdoor retailers, and a lot of the meetings were really forced, and you're like, this sucks. But then you go to Patagonia, you have a cup of coffee, you hug the guy, you talk about split boarding and kids and all the fun stuff, and then you realize this is why we do it, right?
Yeah.
Not forced, just having fun.
Yeah,
exactly.
Where can people find you guys?
Yeah, so we're on pretty much any podcast platform. The Breakthrough Secrets podcast is the actual title. The is in there, the word the. But at this point now, I think we've put so many episodes out. You could just search it and it should pop up. We're on every podcast platform. We have a website, kettlebell.works, www.kettlebell.works, and we've got a bunch of free resources in there for people. Right now, we've put together it's called a mindset playbook, which is actually pieces from a number of the guests we've had that have specifically talked about mindset, and put those into a playbook where you've got, kind of like you just said, Sean, the actionable things you can do. Takes you to the part in the podcast where you can actually hear that part in the episode where the guest is talking about that, and then here's the takeaway of how you can take this and actually put it into your life right now. So we have that link kind of all over the place. Listeners, you guys can, it's for sale on our website, but you can get it for free if you go to a number of places. You can go to the Breakthrough Secrets Instagram page. You can go to my Instagram page. There's a link in the bio there. You guys can get that for free. Anyone who's listening or watching. And it's because, as you said, Sean, we kind of found ourselves being like, man, there are a lot of actionable takeaways like from our podcast. We should put some stuff together to give people, to make it easier, rather than saying, hey, yeah, go listen to these 5 1-hour podcasts and you'll get these takeaways. Like, no, we'll put it in a few pages and just, you can go directly to that spot in the podcast where they're talking about whatever, takeaway we wanted to put in there. And it's pretty cool. And it's stuff that Mike and I have actually, as Mike said, our lives have changed. We've put a lot of this stuff into play in our own lives and seen it make a big impact, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, another resource that's absolutely great if people want to just explore the podcast first is that top 10 podcasts that we had that will change your life. This is a breakdown of the top 10 most popular podcasts that we've had so far of people that are coming in. So that's a good place to start if you want to absorb what we're doing.
And I'll put links to the top 10 episodes and kettlewell.works and the Facebook group. Is that okay if I put that link in there too?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's great. And as a fan, I recommend this show very much. And both gentlemen, I would trust with their knowledge and insights in a heartbeat. This has been a lot of fun, Chris and Mike. Thank you very much.
Likewise.
Yeah, seriously, man. Thanks. It was a pleasure to get to meet you virtually for the first time, and look forward to more, man.
I'm looking forward to it too. And we will have many more. I'll have links below where to find out more about the Breakthrough Secrets podcast. And you guys are on Audible now too. That's awesome.
Yeah, I just noticed that I really think we're everywhere. Yeah, we're on Amazon, we're on Audible. Like, I think you can listen to us pretty much anywhere now.
I'm like, I gotta get an Audible. So thank you for the inspiration to help me get better too. That's awesome.
Awesome. Anything we can do, man. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Engearment.com, YouTube viewers and podcast followers, thanks for checking us out. I have all the links below where you can learn more about Mike and Chris and the awesome Breakthrough Secrets podcast. Till next time, take care.
Thanks, brother.
See ya.